The Premier League has already seen Christos Tzolis once, and it almost destroyed him. He arrived in England as one of Greece's most exciting young attackers. He left Norwich as a forgotten talent, pushed through loans, managerial changes, and the lowest moment of his career. Now, 4 years later, Arsenal have agreed a £40 million deal to bring him back. But this is not the same player England remembers. That version of Tzolis was young, rushed and trapped inside a team already falling apart. This version arrives with goals, assists, European experience, and something even more valuable, proof that he can rebuild himself. Arsenal are not signing potential without evidence. They are signing a winger who has already been broken, forced to disappear, and dangerous enough to fight his way back. He can attack from the left, move inside onto his stronger right foot, create for others, and finish actions himself. But the real question is not whether he dominated in Belgium. The real question is whether his game can survive the speed, pressure and limited space that once exposed him in England. Arsenal believe the answer is yes. And if they are right, this is not simply another attacking option. This is a player returning to finish a chapter the Premier League thought was already closed. Reports state Arsenal and Club Brugge agreed a €40 million transfer with the player authorised to complete a medical. Not reduced Tzolis to one position. That is where the danger begins. On paper, Tzolis is a left winger. In reality, his value comes from what happens after he leaves the touchline. He begins wide enough to stretch the full-back, then attacks the inside channel before the defence can reset. That creates two problems at once. Follow him inside, and space opens for the overlapping defender. Leave him alone, and he receives closer to goal on his stronger foot. But here is what makes him more useful than a traditional isolation winger. Tzolis does not need to beat 3 defenders every time he receives the ball. He can release it quickly, continue moving, and arrive for the second action. He can combine near the box, attack the space behind a centre-back, or appear at the far post when the ball starts on the opposite side. That makes him less predictable. He does not only threaten the defender in front of him, he threatens the structure behind that defender. For Arsenal, that matters. Elite opponents often defend deep, narrow the centre, and force attacks toward crowded wide areas. The answer is not always more dribbling. Sometimes it is better timing. Tzolis can begin outside the block, then enter the space before anyone has decided who should follow. But before the rejection came the reason England wanted him in the first place. Tzolis emerged through POK as the type of teenager clubs convince themselves they cannot miss. He was direct, fearless, and willing to shoot before defenders expected it. He did not play like someone waiting for experience. He played like someone who believed the match should already belong to him. That confidence accelerated everything. First-team football arrived early. International recognition followed. Then Norwich paid to bring him to the Premier League in 2021. From the outside, it looked like the natural next step. A young winger with speed and end product was moving into the richest league in the world. But development is rarely that clean. A transfer can be correct for the club and still arrive at the wrong time for the player. Norwich were fighting for survival. The pressure was immediate. The tactical demands were greater. The space disappeared. Every mistake carried consequences. Tzolis was no longer the fearless talent attacking open grass in Greece. He was a teenager expected to solve problems inside a team that could barely control matches. And this is where the story changed. The qualities that made him exciting were still there, but the environment no longer allowed him to express them without punishment. The failure was real, but the reason behind it is more complicated than the numbers suggest. Tzolis never established a stable rhythm at Norwich. Minutes were inconsistent, the team struggled, and a managerial change removed the coach who had helped bring him to the club. For a senior player, that is disruption. For a teenager adjusting to a new country, a new league, and a relegation battle, it can erase the pathway completely. He began to look hesitant. The direct runs became less frequent. The confidence to shoot disappeared. The Premier League did not wait for him to recover. It moved on. Loans followed, first to Twente, then to Fortuna Düsseldorf. That can be the point where a young career becomes permanent drift. One club stops believing, another wants only a temporary solution, and the player starts carrying the reputation of his previous failure everywhere he goes. Tzolis later described the Norwich period as the lowest point of his career. But here is the twist. Norwich did not prove that he lacked talent. It proved that talent without the correct environment can become almost invisible. He did not need another promise. He needed minutes, responsibility, and a club willing to let him fail without removing him after the next mistake. Norwich was the collapse. Germany would become the repair. And then came the season that changed everything. At Fortuna Düsseldorf, Tzolis finally received what his career had been missing. Continuity. He played, made mistakes, returned the next week, and slowly stopped carrying Norwich into every action. The hesitation disappeared. He began attacking defenders again. He shot earlier, moved with greater conviction, and became a decisive player, rather than a young talent asking for permission. That season was not only about production, it was about identity. Tzolis remembered what type of attacker he was: direct, aggressive, and most dangerous when his first thought was forward. This matters because confidence in football is not abstract. You can see it in the body. A confident winger receives on the front foot. He attacks before the second defender arrives. He shoots through small windows. He makes the same run again, even when the previous one fails. At Norwich, Tzolis had started protecting himself from mistakes. In Germany, he began creating them for opponents. The comeback was strong enough to attract Club Brugge, a club that could offer domestic pressure, European football, and another level of tactical responsibility. Fortuna did not complete his career. It reopened it. But one revival season can be dismissed. 2 years of production cannot. Club Brugge gave Tzolis a temporary escape. In his first season, he produced 21 goals and 16 assists across 56 appearances. Those are not numbers created by one hot month. They reflect availability, consistency, and influence across an entire campaign. Then he continued producing the following season, delivering in Belgium and appearing in major European matches. He scored late against Atletico Madrid in the Champions League knockout, paying stronger evidence that his did not disappear when the But now look closer. The goals tell only part of the story. Tzolis also became a creator. He could carry the ball forward, draw pressure, then release a teammate. He could take set pieces, attack transitions, or find space against deeper blocks. That range is what changes his Arsenal value. They are not buying a winger who requires one specific type of match. They are buying someone who has learned to affect games through different routes. The teenager Norwich signed needed freedom. The player Arsenal are targeting has learned responsibility. That does not guarantee Premier League success, but it changes the risk completely. He returns with evidence, not hope. So why Arsenal and why now? Arsenal do not need another winger simply to stand beside the touchline. They need different answers to different defensive questions. Tzolis offers several. Against a high line, he can attack the space behind. Against a low block, he can move inside, combine quickly, and shoot from areas defenders struggle to protect. When Arsenal lose the ball, his energy gives them another player capable of reacting immediately. And when matches become chaotic, he is comfortable attacking before the opponent can organise. That matters because controlled teams still need controlled chaos. Possession can move a defence, but sometimes a winger must break the pattern before the block is ready. Tzolis can bring that aggression. He is also entering his mid-20s, not arriving as another teenager who needs years before he can contribute. Arsenal are paying for a player who should be ready to compete while still retaining room to improve. But there is another detail. He does not require the entire attack to be built around him. At Brugge, he learned to create and finish. He can begin an action, disappear from the first phase, then arrive to complete it. That makes him easier to combine with technical midfielders and attacking fullbacks. He does not only demand the ball, he attacks what the ball creates. But here is the problem. Belgium is not England, and redemption does not remove the test. The Premier League will ask questions that Belgium could not fully answer. Can Tzolis protect the ball when a defender arrives through his back? Can he make the correct decision when the shooting window lasts half a second? Can he maintain his influence when Arsenal dominate possession, but the opponent gives him no space to accelerate? And can he accept rotation without losing the rhythm that helped rebuild his confidence? These are not minor details. Tzolis became dangerous again because he played continuously and carried responsibility. At Arsenal, he may not start every match. He must learn to produce without needing weeks to find momentum. The physical level will rise, the tactical margin will shrink, the expectations will become louder, and every poor performance will invite the same question. Is this the Norwich player returning? That is unfair, but elite football is not interested in fairness. Tzolis must use the past without becoming trapped inside it. His failure gives him experience. It does not give him protection. This time he returns older, stronger, and more complete. But the league that rejected him will not apologise. It will test him again. And this is where the transfer becomes more interesting than the fee. Arsenal are not paying 40 million yuan because Tzolis has never failed. They are paying because he failed and still built himself into a valuable player. That distinction matters. Many expensive young signings arrive with perfect stories. Their confidence has never been attacked, their status has never disappeared, nobody knows how they will respond when progress stops. Tzolis already knows. He has experienced the bench, the loans, the doubt, and the feeling that England had moved beyond him. Then he responded with production. That does not make the transfer safe. No attacking transfer is safe. But it gives Arsenal information that highlight reels are not provide. They know how he reacts when his career loses momentum. They know he can leave one country, rebuild in another, and carry that improvement into European competition. The fee is not only for goals and assists, it is for resilience with evidence behind it. Arsenal are not buying an untouched prospect. They are buying a player whose ambition has already survived contact with failure. And now the story returns to the place where it almost ended. Christos Tzolis first entered the Premier League as a promise. He returns as a warning. Not because Belgium guarantees success, but because the player Arsenal are signing understands how quickly football can remove everything. He knows what happens when confidence disappears. He knows what happens when a coach changes, minutes vanish, and the world begins describing you through your worst season. Most importantly, he knows the path back. Arsenal have agreed to pay 40 million nuts for his goals, creativity, movement, and ability to attack from the left. But the final value of this transfer will depend on something colder. Can he bring the fearless player from Brugge into the league that once made him afraid to fail? If he can, Arsenal will have more than another wide option. They will have a player entering his prime with unfinished business, a winger who can create without dominating possession, and an attacker who has already survived the chapter that ruins many young careers. The Premier League thought it had already judged Christos Tzolis. Norwich looked like the answer. Germany changed the question. Belgium provided the evidence. And now Arsenal may give him the final stage. This is not his first arrival in England. This is his chance to prove the first one never told the full story.